Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to my shop. I believe that if you'll spend a few minutes with me today, together we can become better at creating things with our mind and making things with our hands. Welcome to the workshop. I'm Tim. Today we're going to learn about the table saw. A lot of the people that we run into that are coming in to take classes are a little bit afraid of the table saw. It happens to be the workforce of the shop. Some people consider it oftentimes the most dangerous tool in the shop. I do not agree with that. Personally, I think the most dangerous tool in the shop is the one between here and here, because that's where the mistakes are going to start. So what I hope to have you do today is to come out with a comfort level in terms of operating the table saw. Called a table saw because you have the big table. Big saw blade comes up through the center of it. It's designed to dimension your lumber to your final thickness or final width rather. Get your boards as wide as they need to be. You have the fence here, which governs where your board is going to ride. You have the table here. The blade comes up through that. We're going to push it through. We're going to make our cut. A couple things that are super important here is one, your board has to have been through the jointer and the planer first. So you've got nice straight edges to cut with in terms of riding against your fence and your deck. You don't want something that's a little twisted or warped because there's an opportunity for it to bind on the blade and get kicked back out of the saw. So what I'm going to show you today is how I feel it's best and safest to operate a table saw. One, we've got our object piece, it's ready to go. How are we going to feed it through the saw? We're going to set our fence to our desired width of our piece. Going to get that established. We've got a nice straight edge here. Now, when I'm going to run this through, it's very important that this board stay next to this fence and stay tight there. So I'm going to take my right hand, I'm going to tuck these fingers up underneath. I'm going to hide them from the blade essentially. I like them where they're at, so I'm going to keep them. I'm going to hide them here, and I'm going to take the inside of my index finger, and I'm going to use that to push my piece against the fence. I'm going to use my thumb to push it down onto the deck. So now my piece is real stable right there where it is. When I'm going to push this through my saw, I'm going to hold it up here in the back and support it. I'm going to drive it through my saw. What's important is where my stance is, and one, that I want to be close to the saw. So again, I want to have all my weight squarely above my hips and my feet, so I'm not leaning out over the saw at all. I don't want any weight going out over the saw. I want it all directly down to the floor. So I take this line here for my miter gauge. I like to put my left foot straight down from that so that my upper body is basically at a 45-degree angle from my fence here. So I'm going to start out with taking my left hand, putting my fingers under, my knuckles are down on the table, my thumb is holding my piece down onto the deck, my index finger is holding the pressure onto the board, pushing it into the fence so it's nice and stable, riding to the fence. I'm going to push my board up. At this point, I've got to roll my hand over to get on top of the board, hooking it with my thumb, fingers on the top, and I'm going to take my left foot, I'm going to slide it out of the way, I'm going to put my right foot there. Basically at the same time, I'm taking my left hand, I'm going to put it back up here somewhere. There's no danger up here. Everything about operating a table saw is about mitigating the risk. If I'm leaning down here, if I'm putting it over here, there's the opportunity to slip or something and slide into the blade, so I keep it up here out of the way. I can push my board all the way through my saw, all the way past the red zone as I call it, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring it straight back up like this. That way I can accomplish that, I can take my focus off the blade, and I can reach on here and turn my saw off. Left foot underneath the miter slot, left hand holding the board down into the fence, right hand pushing it through, turn that right hand over, replace my right foot, or my left foot rather with my right. I'm going to slide this all the way through, take this hand straight back up off the board, turn my saw off, wait till the blade stops, and then I can contact my material. There's going to be a piece that's going to come off of here. There's going to be a cut-off piece. Never touch it. Let it sit there. It's going to ride out there. It's going to sit here. It's not going to move unless you move it. If you move it, then it has the opportunity to contact the blade and get thrown out of the back of the saw. You don't want that to happen. A question people often ask is, how high should my blade be? Does my blade cut better there, or does it cut better down here? It's a trick question. It doesn't really cut any different either way. What this does for us, if I've got my blade set up so that there's 3 or 4 blade tips sticking up above my board, that's going to cut just fine. But what it's going to do is it's going to minimize the risk to me and my fingers because there's going to be that much less blade exposed. Let's demonstrate that for you. Let's see, we've got a board here that looks to be about 5.5 wide, so let's make it 5.25. I've got my blade height set, so I've got a few teeth just showing above. I'm going to get my board in place. I got my left foot directly below the miter slot. My left hand is holding it in place. It's short enough to where I can hold it in place, reach down and turn my saw on. Slide it through. Turn my hand over, get my left hand out of the way, let my right hand push it beyond the red zone, take my hands up, turn the saw off. Notice that cutoff piece didn't move. It's right next to the blade. The riving knife is in place. Always have a riving knife on your saw. Don't ever operate one without it. Always have that in place. That sits there. It didn't go anywhere. Had I touched it and maybe moved it into the blade, it might have gone somewhere. Now, kickback is something that does happen on table saws. When you go through and you get a piece that's bound in there, the saw will literally throw it up behind you. So where you stand is important. Why I switch from my left foot to my right foot is I'm clearing this lane. If it's going to kick back, it's going to go right here. I don't want to be standing there when that goes. It hurts a whole lot. I can tell you that from experience. Do not stand there. Clear the lane, let it go. If it goes out of there, it's going to go right on by me and impact something else. We had someone come in and use the shop. They chose not to put a riving knife in, and they touched the offcut of the board. And after it got done on its journey, it landed right here in the wall. And that's where it stays. That's what cutoff or kickback can do for you. So do not touch the cutoff part of your material when you're done with it. Let it sit there until the blade comes to a stop. Woodworking will teach you patience and that you have to wait for that blade to stop. That's the safest thing for you to do, so don't touch it. Something else that you can also use as a means of, as a safety measure, and some people prefer it. If it's smaller pieces, I will. With larger stuff, I won't. Run your piece through. Keep a push stick handy on your saw, so I can hook this over and I can run that through the saw as well. Notice again, I've got my push block pointed at my blade so that all my energy is being deflected off of the fence and the deck. I'm keeping everything nice and tight to the blade. It keeps my fingers that much further from the saw, again mitigating risk. If you'll operate a table saw just like that every time, you're minimizing your risk, minimizing the opportunity for an accident, and you can safely operate a table saw for the duration. I've been running them for 35 years with the original 10. They've never had an issue, never been injured on a table saw. Remember that all the tools you see us use in the shop today are available on the link below. Please go out and use your table saw safely. Thank you for spending time with me today here in the shop. I look forward to seeing you next time.